and you hear these words, "You are the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything, but is thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven." The word of God for us, the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. It is a joy to be with you today. I want to tell you how this day came about. President and I, and Long-Beach Relations Director and choir ensemble or soloists, different folks go throughout the 9 Methodist churches throughout the state and say thanks and try to connect with them, but especially with those who have students currently at college. So back September, I guess, as soon as students started coming in, I sent an email out to all our 9 Methodist students and said, if you would like for us to come to your church sometime, please let me know and I'll see if I can arrange it. And I got a note back from one of your own, Chelsea Kaiser, who I believe is back here in the choir, and she said, "I would love for you to come to my church." So that's how we're here. I called Russell, and the rest is history. So we are here to support her and to support our other folks who are here. And once again, say thank you for your support at the college and for sending us students, and please continue to do so. When you go back to 1854 and look at the founding documents about Columbia College, it says that the college's mission, coming out of the Methodist Church in 1854, was, quote, "to educate women leaders for service to the church, state, and the nation." Now today, as you heard from the President, we have changed, the society has changed a lot since 1854. We are still well known for our women's college and for educating women leaders, but also we have men in the co-ed evening program and graduate school and now online in criminal justice and emergency management. But something I think remains true. Columbia College is about educating servant leaders for service to the church, state, and nation. That has remained. That's our mission. Now, I understand that you guys have been talking about the mission of the church some in your reading the book of Acts and in blogging and dialoguing and studying together and studying about the servant leaders within the book of Acts. Now, even though I read the passage from the Gospel of Matthew this morning, I've read some of the blogs and read through some of Acts this week so I could kind of participate with you in knowing that I was going to be here. Paid attention to the conversation and know that you guys are looking at those 5 things that all United Methodists say that they will do when they join the church, and that is to support it by prayers, presence, gifts, service, and witness. Well, all this has made me think of the United Methodist Church campaign right now, marketing campaign that they are doing nationally. And it's called, you might see from the title, Rethink Church. One of those ads in their campaign asks, what if church was a verb? What if church was not a building that you go to, but what if church was something that you do? Acts 7:48. One of the readings, your readings this past week, as I was reading through, says, "The Most High does not dwell in houses made by human hands." So we're reminded that God is not just here, but out there as well. We're living in a culture, in a society, and sometimes it's hard to see when you grow up in the church and you've been in the church your whole life, but we're no longer living in a church culture society. Roughly 80% of people living in the United States today say that they are still Christians, consider themselves Christians. However, the percentage of Americans this weekend, average of any weekend, I should say, in a religious service, and this includes not just churches, but synagogues or mosques. So, Jews, Christians, or Muslims in a religious service this weekend in the United States will be roughly 43% of the population. So we are a minority within our culture. That's why the United Methodist Church is starting the Rethink Church campaign. It's about doing two different things. One, helping the church rethink what it means to be the church so that it can better connect to those unchurched. And number two, the campaign is trying to redefine what the church is to those outside of the church, and especially those ages 18 to 35, which are largely missing in a lot of churches. So I want to remind you of what the word church, where the word church comes from. And I mentioned this in the earlier service and found out that there are some Greek within the family, within Russell's family, but I thought of My Big Fat Greek Wedding because have anybody seen that movie? Yeah, it's a funny movie, and it's PG, so it's okay for the whole family to watch, which is nice. Not too many of those anymore these days, but I watched it this past week because my mother, much like your church building, she had a pipe freeze and burst. I grew up in the mountains of East Tennessee, bordering North Carolina, and it got pretty chilly. And I've had her at my house for a couple of weeks because her condo has just been a total mess. So we watched this past week My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And there's a guy, the kind of patriarch of the family, Gus is his name. And throughout the whole movie, he'll say, "Oh, will you give me any word, and I will show you how it comes from the Greek." So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to channel my Gus from Big Fat Greek Wedding. And so you give me the word church, and I'm going to show you how it comes from the Greek. So it comes from this Greek word ekklesia. And it's used twice. Jesus uses it 2 times in the Gospel of Matthew, both within Matthew. And that's all that the word is used within the Gospels. And it means, means out. And klesia comes from a Greek verb named kaleo, or it comes from the Greek verb kaleo, like to call. So ekklesia, well, the word where we get church from, literally means people who are called out. People who are called out. We're not just called out to belong to an assembly, but we have been called out and we've been given a mission. It's in that same Gospel of Matthew that Jesus, at the end of it, if you will recall, gives what we know as the Great Commission, where Jesus says, "Go. Go into the world. Go and teach what I have been teaching. Go and do what I have been doing so that God's kingdom is spread." So there's 2 parts to being church. There's belonging and doing. Wesley sometimes kind of called these personal holiness and social holiness, or we could call it the inward journey and the outward journey. It goes back to the great commandment also in the Gospel of Matthew, to love God, love your neighbor. And remember that Jesus said that those 2 are identical, that they're the same. That loving your neighbor is in fact loving God. So it's not enough to simply belong to the assembly, Because the ecclesia, the church, has been given a mission to go out and to love your neighbor. I want to tell you this story. So, as stories began, once upon a time. So, once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there was a lighthouse. And it was set up on this rocky shoreline. And like all lighthouses, of course, it helped ships steer through stormy waters to avoid the rocks along the shore. Well, the lighthouse keeper became ill one day and became ill for quite some time. And they had to send in a substitute lighthouse keeper to be in charge of the lighthouse. And quite some time passed, doing a good job, protecting everything and making sure the light shone bright. But, after so much time, the guy really began worrying about the light. Worrying about that light. And a storm blew in. And it was a bad storm, and debris was going around, sand and sticks and branches and stuff were flying around everywhere, high winds. And he became more and more worried about that light. And he searched and he searched and he found a big piece of canvas. And he put that piece of canvas up over that light to protect the glass from being broke by the debris. He thought he was doing a good thing. But it just so happened that on that night there was a small ship out in the stormy waters, rocking back and forth, and it was relying upon that light from the lighthouse. And when the light went out, when the light was covered up, and it could no longer see, you can probably guess what happened. It was blown into the rocks, and it crashed, and it sank. Kind of a depressing story, isn't it? Sometimes I guess it's easy to get caught up protecting something and you forget the purpose for it in the first place. You see, we remember from our childhood days that little rhyme, hand gestures about, here's the church, here's the steeple, you open it up, you see all the people. And we think that the people are in the church, but the people are the church. The people are the church. When you get sick, it's not the offering plates that come to visit you or the stained glass windows, is it? Who has ever been visited by stained glass windows? Nobody. No. You're visited by the people. When a family member dies, it's the people, the church, the people who make food, who come and give you hugs, and who just sit, just to be in your presence. It's the people are the church. The ecclesia, people who are called out, and we have been given a mission. That mission is not to protect a building or to simply hang out inside, but the mission is to go out, to go and to love your neighbor, to be the light of the world, to be salt for the earth. Traditionally, the church has had this model that I like to refer to as a baseball diamond. So imagine the baseball diamond, and first base is the invitation. And this is kind of the model that the church has used for at least the last 150 years. And that is that we would invite someone to come inside the walls of our building. Let's go out there, invite them in. That's first base, the invitation. And then if they come in, they generally come into a worship setting, to the sanctuary. We're going to worship with them. So that's second base. And then third base, once we get to know them a little bit, we might invite them to a Bible study or a small group, and we begin nurturing and discipling them. And then the home run is when we say, you are ready, go out and serve in mission. We're going to go on this mission project to Costa Rica or maybe even across the street. And you're ready to go. That worked for the last 100 years. It worked quite well. I'm not sure that no longer that works anymore. The 18 to 35-year-olds within the United Methodist Church and all mainline denominations are almost absent. They want to make a difference in the world. So I'm suggesting that perhaps we turn the baseball diamond around and we run clockwise rather than counterclockwise. That we go out, and while we're out there serving the homeless, the hungry, while we're repairing a home for somebody, maybe we go over and we invite people to come and join us. Those young people really do want to make a difference. And while they're joining you out there in rebuilding a home or serving in the soup kitchen, then you can begin nurturing them, discipling them, loving them. And then it's a whole lot easier to say, hey, would you want to come for worship within our church walls? And then the church doesn't feel quite such a strange place because you know something. Turn the baseball diamond around. We must rethink church. That, I think, is what the Rethink Church campaign within the United Methodist Church is attempting to do. To get us to rethink how we do church. To get those outside of the church to view us differently. So what if church was a verb? Not a noun, not a place where you go, but it was a list of acts that you do. Perhaps a whole book of Acts. You've been reading the book of Acts, you read that it always talks about going out. People went out to preach, people went out to speak, to teach. Jesus says, you are the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, it's no longer good for anything. You're the light of the world. No one after lighting a lamp hides it under a bushel basket, but puts it on a lampstand to give light to all. So, Red Bank United Methodist Church, I have a challenge you to turn the baseball diamond around, to run clockwise, to remove the canvas from the lighthouse lamp, to be salt to the earth, to be light to the world. May you truly be the ecclesia, people called out with mission, knowing that church was always meant to be a verb. May it be so for you.